thanks for, asking us to do this.
Not a problem at all. Now, mate, I was going to start off by asking a little bit about how did this all come about for you guys to come across and play a download?
We've been trying to come over to Australia for quite some time now, and every time we've tried to come over, something else has always come up, like another tour, whether it's like in America or something in Europe, and we've just kind of been like, we need to go when the time's right. And then basically when we had the email come through asking about download, we were like, well, there's not a better time really, is there? So it's just like, yep. There you go, the offer's there, we're going to Australia, finally, we're doing it, we're going, we'll try and do some side shows, which we can only do Brisbane because we've got to fly to Southeast Asia, but I think we will be trying to come back in the future for like a proper Australian tour, probably like next year or something. But yeah, I'm excited just to come over for Download and that side show in Brisbane.
Definitely. So what was it about Australia that made you guys want to tour here so badly?
I don't know, I toured Australia with my last band that I was in, and I had a great time, and it's just, there seems to always be because tours, I'm not sure how many tours go over into Australia, but it always seems whenever I see a tour go to Australia, it just always seems to be doing well and stuff, so it just I was like, yeah, we need to go over there, this feels right, we need to go.
How did you find the fans when you came over here last time? Because Australian music fans are getting that reputation now of being some of the craziest fans in the world at shows. How did you find the fans when you were over here last time?
With the last band I was in, it was good. It was really good. It was more of a hardcore tour than metal, because the last band I was playing in wasn't a metal band. But that was good. And, I've heard for metal as well, it's great as well. So I'm really excited to get Venom Prison over there and, play some shows.
Yeah. Now, a few years ago in Australia, our two biggest festivals, Big Day Out and Soundwave, both collapsed. And we were so grateful when Download started up in Australia. But I was wondering from an artist's point of view, how important are big festivals like Download? Because I know for fans, we were really disappointed when the two big ones collapsed. But how important is a festival like Download to artists like yourself?
Really important. Really, really important. I think it's a chance, because the lineups are so big and so diverse. There's never going to be an opportunity, for a band to play to that, amount of people and that much of a diverse crowd. And it's you're going to be playing to people who probably didn't even know who you were or didn't even know they would like that type of music. So it's just a chance to really expand and just play to, a different crowd. Maybe there are some people there who love metal, which I'm sure there will be. But at the same time, it's cool that you get a chance and an opportunity just to play to someone who may have never heard this before and just introduce them to it. And they, for all you know, they might become a fan of it. And I think that's the most interesting thing about festivals.
Yeah. Does that change how you approach playing on stage, and what you play? Because when you headline, all the people are there to see you. But like you just said, at a festival, there may be a lot of people there that have never heard your music or never even heard of you before. So does it change the way that you approach playing at a festival like that?
Not really. I think you need to be yourself. I think that's the only way you're kind of going to, win people over, is you can kind of tailor yourself to play into different crowds. But then at the end of the day, when they go home and then listen to you, then, they're going to realise you weren't what you said you were, because you were kind of catering for that. Where if you just be yourselves and you kind of just play the music you play, and admittedly some people aren't going to like it, you can't win everyone, but being yourself and playing is that opportunity then for someone to kind of go, I didn't think I'd like this, but now I do. So I think you do just generally need to play what you do, and just kind of make sure your band is representing what your band does, rather than kind of going, these guys going to like this, and it's you've got to accept some aren't going to like it. But I think that is always the best way to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I always find interesting about festivals is when I chat to different musicians, they always talk about the fact that some of their most embarrassing moments or some of their most popular moments that they've loved have all happened at festivals when they've been walking around backstage and run into their musical idols. Have you had any of those things happen where you've met someone at a festival that you've just been in awe of, or have you gone the opposite way and done something really embarrassing in front of a musician that you really admire at a festival?
At a festival, neither, to be honest. Neither, to be honest. Like, there are times, like, undeniably, like, I'll walk past them. Like, when we played Brutal Assault Fest in Czech Republic last year, and it was just, like, like, little things, like, me and Ben, the guitarist in Venom Prison, were, like, walking, and I was just like, oh, Ben, there's a guitarist from Carcass over there. And it's just, like, little things like that. But, like, they're, like, think enough to keep me happy, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not that type of guy to run over and be like, yo, I love you, like, can I have a photo? Like, I'm just, I'm just happy that I'm in the presence of those bands, if you know what I mean, rather than kind of running over, just, like, kind of just being that guy. And it's, like, I'd just rather just be like, oh, I'm just grateful that Venom Prison's, alongside these bands that I appreciate and respect so much. And that's enough to keep me happy, to be honest. And I think that's probably why, like, I can't answer that question, because that is what kind of, like, I appreciate more, is, like, the fact that even when we did that, like, Metal Hammer Awards, when, oh God, I can't remember now, it's like a year or two ago. And, like, it was, like, people from Mastodon, Black Sabbath, Rage Against the Machine, like, and all this, but it's just, like, you can run over to them and just, like, make a big fuss, or you can just sit there and kind of just, like, say to yourself, like, fuck, this is cool, like, something me and my friends have created has, like, landed us in the position where we're in the same room as these people. Just admire that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. And that was actually something I was going to ask you about, the Metal Hammer Awards. You guys have had so much success over the past few years, and your music has been recognised because of that. What's it been like being a member of Venom Prison as all of this has happened, with the award nominations and the award wins, and also, like, the last album taking off the way that it did?
It's been very good. Like, it's been really cool, and I think, like, everyone, like, I don't just speak for myself, but everyone in Venom Prison is, like, insanely grateful for all of this, because when we started this band, we were all previously in other bands before this, and they'd either, members had either left their last bands, or, like, their bands had broken up, and, like, Venom Prison was just something for, like, a bunch of us to get together and be like, yeah, cool, do you want to just try something new and write some music together? And then, like, people started taking an interest into it, and it was just like, hang on a minute, something's happening here. And then I think that's kind of, like, the moment where we were like, oh, actually, maybe we can do something with Venom Prison, like, if we put a bit of hard work into it. And I think, kind of, like, as overwhelming as it was for, like, the response to Samsara and all that, it's like, in my head, I'm always like, well, even if I go back a little bit, like, if I go to, like, Animus, for example, it was like, people were saying, like, this is such a great debut and all that, and, like, as much as I sat there and I was like, yo, I appreciate this so much, but in my head, I'm like, fuck, how do I do that on album 2? What the fuck do I do now? Like, how am I going to improve this? Like, yeah. And I think that's kind of what sits in the back of my mind more than anything, is just, like, not letting myself down on the next record, and just making sure that everything always progresses and we're always kind of evolving and doing something new every album, rather than writing the same record over and over, and just kind of making sure that we, like, kind of do it because we feel like we're achieving our best that we can do, and then hopefully that translates and other people admire it as well, which is kind of how I felt with Samsara. So I think, yeah, as soon as, like, people are, like, start talking about an album and saying, like, how much they enjoyed it, in my head I'm already sat there thinking, okay, right, I need to work now. I need to make sure that this is going to be a progression to the next record.
Yeah. There was 3 years between the first two records. Now, because of how those albums have been received, do you feel pressure to try and bring the next album out a little bit sooner than 3 years?
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, everyone always says album 3 is the big one, don't they?
Yeah.
It's always been that thing, isn't it? Album 3 is the big one.
Yeah, it's the make or break album, yep.
So I think for Venom Prison, really, like, album 3 now is just kind of all about not rewriting Samsara. Like, that is the most important thing to me, is not rewriting Samsara. Like, for me, like, if I was just to make Samsara .2, that wouldn't be a pass for me. Like, album 3 needs to be something, you know, that introduces new elements, new progressions, you know, people musically evolving in the band, as well as songwriting, and like just making sure that what album 3 is like another new version of Venom Prison. Like, Animus doesn't sound like Samsara, and then, you know, Samsara is not going to sound like album 3 is not going to sound like Samsara. And I think that's kind of what keeps me motivated and interested, just to be like, these are elements that we can introduce and still keep that sound of Venom Prison, but not writing the same records.
Yeah. But, and also, like, your lyrics are so important. Like, the topics that you guys explore, things like mental health, is so important to your fans. And this world that we live in at the moment is so crazy. Are you constantly getting inspiration to write from the things that are going on around us at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Like, everything always kind of like influenced. That's what I enjoy about Venom Prison so much, is the fact that Venom Prison gets influenced by things that happen around us, rather than just kind of, you know, going, oh, I like this. It's like everything gets soaked in, and then like it's almost like that's why like the space between Animus and Samsara was like it was, is because it was that time to soak everything in, to make sure that, you know, what was going to be presented on Samsara was going to be as powerful as it could be.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like the same with album 3 at the moment. It's like what everyone's experiencing in Venom Prison, or what everyone's experiencing around them, or what's generally happening, and it all gets soaked in. And I think that is kind of what shapes and, you know, makes the sound of a Venom Prison record, is it kind of just sits in like a package with a theme and concept, where everything has its relation to each other, whether it's lyrics, artwork, music. It all kind of has that consistent chain to each other. And I think that's kind of what keeps me really interested in Venom Prison stuff as well, is the fact that it's not a band that just kind of sits there and goes, right, we need to write 10 good songs. Like, anyone can write 10 good songs, but can you write a good album? Like, you can chuck 10 amazing singles, or whatever you want to say, on an album, and it just makes 10 good songs, but does it make a good album? Is the artwork linked in? Is the lyrics linked in? Is the music consistent with each other throughout the album? You know, you're just drastically changing things all the time, and there's no consistency.
Yeah.
So an album is a package, and I think people sometimes do forget that a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Those lyrics that you write, they are so important, and you're coming into a country like Australia where I think we're all kidding ourselves if we say that this is the same country that we all lived in 6 months ago after the events of this summer. Are you prepared to come into a country where it feels like there's been such a huge shift in the way that the people think and act because of the events of this summer?
I think, like, funny enough, like, I was actually talking about this with Venom Prison not long ago. I was saying, like, it will be so interesting to go in, like, that environment that's been affected by something that is going to kind of, undeniably, it's changed, or it's going to change so much, you know what I mean? It's such a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, to kind of just go there and see, like, anyone can read shit on the news, you know what I mean? Anyone can read shit on Facebook, but to kind of stand there and witness it, you know, for yourself, and kind of say firsthand, like, I really understand this now, because I'm stood here witnessing it myself. And I think that's kind of what's really important to me, is the fact that it's like, I can read as much as I want, but to see it with my own eyes is kind of what makes it, you know, I don't want to say special. I don't know if special's the right word.
Yeah.
But it makes it feel more organic, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm getting that full understanding of what it's done.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. I think that's important to me as well. Like, I find that way more important. Like I was saying, anyone can Google shit in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And think they understand.
Yeah.
It's like, but to see it with my own eyes is kind of what's going to make it that real moment for me, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think everything is still kind of sinking in for people here as well. Like tonight on one of our most watched news programs, we all watched as one of our politicians